Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes. Get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Anita, guess what?
What?
I have started doing online therapy.
Okay, you told me about this. You're doing it with betterhelp.com, right?
I sure am.
Tell me more about it. How does it work?
Okay, so I filled out a questionnaire and then I was matched to a therapist really quickly, like within 24 hours, and we were already communicating.
Ooh, how do the sessions actually work? Is it video conferencing or what?
Yes, you can do video conferencing, you can do a phone call, or you can use the allotted time to instant message with your therapist. So say you're not feeling really great about speaking and you would prefer messaging, or you're in a place where you can't speak, you can still do your sessions there.
Interesting.
It's kind of awesome.
So how's it been going?
It's been going really great. I love how easy it is to communicate and how it's not dependent on where I live and where the therapist lives in order to help me with my needs, like with my grief stuff or anxiety or whatever. So I feel like it's a really great service, and I think that other people should do it.
So, Mel, obviously you've done lots of therapy in the past. So how does this compare to those experiences?
I am such a fan of this online therapy, I have to tell you, because I didn't have to find a therapist and hope that it worked out. I don't have to pay $150 per session, and I don't have to drive an hour to my session and then an hour back. I'm a big fan. It's very convenient.
It sounds like a great idea, especially during a pandemic. It sounds like a great idea anytime, but especially right now when people are stuck inside their house, or if people just don't want to drive because they're lazy like you.
Totally. Or if people have 4 kids like you and they want to die.
Totally true. So we're really excited because we have a new partnership with BetterHelp.com, and our listeners can get 10% off of their first month of counseling if they sign up at, what's the website, Mel?
Try BetterHelp, HELP.com/WWDN, which stands for Widow We Do Now.
Amazing. I am thinking that I should sign up too, Mel, and see if it's going to work out great for me like it's working out great for you.
Yeah, and you know what's awesome? They do individual therapy, they do family therapy, and couples therapy.
Well, couples therapy, yeah.
So when you and I get in a fight, our first widow-wife fight, we can go to BetterHelp and get a session. And just a reminder, this is not a crisis line and it's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online.
That sounds great.
BetterHelp is available for clients worldwide, and you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. Widowing is hard, and not widowing is hard. Everybody needs better mental health. Start living a happier life today. And remember, our listeners get a 10% discount off their first month. And again, the link is trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Happy widowing! Anita!
Yes, Mel, how are you?
Doing great. I feel like I just talked to you last week, which
you did.
Like, nothing for real has changed. Like, I'm staying in my room and working all day long. So, I don't have anything to share.
Are you bored yet?
No, I have actually been so productive because I don't have any friends and I don't have to go anywhere. So, for real, I just work on my computer all day. And then I teach
I've been the
something.
opposite of productive.
Really?
I haven't gotten anything done. But do you want to hear my story from this morning?
Yeah.
Okay. So I woke up early, and I've been trying to wake up earlier than my kids so I can go get a workout in before they're really up and moving around. So I woke up and I went into the kitchen and I was gathering my stuff to get going, and I hear this meow. And I was like, oh, there's a cat outside. We don't have a cat, just FYI. So I was thinking there was a cat like out the back door. So I opened the curtains and I look outside and I don't see a cat. So I think there's a cat outside, but then I look outside and there's no cat. So then I think I imagined the cat. So I go back to doing my thing, getting ready, and I hear meow again. And it's close. Okay. So I'm like, okay. I go look out the front door. I don't see a cat. I go back inside. I start doing my thing. Cat sound again. And it's not close enough together that I can follow the sound, right? So I'm just like, where is this cat? So finally I go outside. I look around my whole house. There's no cat. I am confused. So I come back inside. I go look in my garage. No cat in the garage. But there's still this meowing, and it is loud, and it sounds really close. So now I'm convinced there is a cat inside my house. I'm like, where did this cat come from? Who let this cat inside my house? Is there also like an assailant inside my house who brought his cat with him? So I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. So I start walking down the stairs, and my son has woken up early and is playing Minecraft downstairs. Little did I know that in Minecraft, you can adopt stray cats, okay? So this stupid cat noise is from Minecraft, and he has lured a stray cat into his Minecraft world and has adopted it, and that is what is making the meow sound.
So, good news for you that you don't have to clean up any hairballs.
Yes, and there was no cat inside my house. It was just my son playing Minecraft.
Well, Anita, do you remember the one time when we were recording in your basement in the cave? And one of your kids was actually meowing, and we went outside, and we thought it was a cat that fell in the window well, but it was your child.
No, I don't remember that.
Those are the good old days.
The good old days when we could record in the cave.
Hey, speaking of assailant, I have a story I just realized.
Yeah, please tell.
It's not my personal story. One of my friends sent me a Marco Polo today, and she lives in Utah. She lives in the Orem area. She told me, now this is like, if you guys are not into like true crime and current events, shut this off and come back in 30 seconds. Anyway, so she goes, yeah, I got home from work and there were about 30 cop cars everywhere. And there was crime scene tape, like do not cross and all this stuff. It turns out that there was a home invasion in her apartment building. Not complex, like
scary.
Her building. And they invaded the house and then they murdered somebody. So if it was a guy that was married maybe she's going to be our new friend. I hope not. I hope that there was no widow from that. But isn't that crazy? I swear, like, people are going crazy.
That's freaky.
I think they've been locked up for so long.
I wonder if the murderer brought a cat with him or if he didn't.
What? So, isn't that crazy? And I know people have like been getting attacked back here in New York. I swear people are going insane. And all the people that have rage or the serial killers, they have had to be home quarantined. What are they going to do? They can't serial kill. Now they're coming out.
Mel, I don't need to hear any of this. I am already too stressed out about everything else. So I don't want to know about any home invasions or serial killers.
Fine. Anyway, welcome.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're just a couple of young widows trying to figure out widow we do now. Yes. Okay, we have some exciting news. We've had quite a few of our listeners reach out to us and express that they would love a place to connect with other people who, quote unquote, get it. So we have spent some time putting together a group on Facebook that you guys can join so that you might talk to each other so that you can connect with others who are in your same position. It is on Facebook and it is called The Widow We Do Now Widow Wives Club. So if you head to Facebook and you search that name in the search bar, it should pop up. And then you can request to join. Just FYI, we are trying to avoid creepy stalkers and psychopaths. So it is going to ask you to submit a link to your loved one's obituary or a photo of the obituary, and your name will need to appear in that so that we can hopefully try and keep it a safe space that we know that there's not scary people in. Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Thank you. Yep. And actually, we got an email last week from our fellow widow wife friend in Canada, in Winnipeg, Karen. And she needs a widow wife. So whoever gets on there, meet Karen.
And we just feel lucky. Mel and I feel lucky that we have been able to connect with each other. And maybe some of you guys haven't been able to find somebody and connect with somebody else who can kind of be your support system. So there you have it.
Join the group.
Come join.
Great.
We had a listener submit a question, and we told him that we would address his question on the next podcast. So Mel's going to read it.
This is from our friend Travis. And I happen to know that Travis lives in Australia. So, hey, Travis. Travis writes, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask this, but do the thoughts/wishes of your partners ever play into your decision making? If I passed away, I would want my wife to remarry or find another partner again. I'd also want my kids to have a good male influence in their lives, too. I know each person is different, but he would like to get some different takes on that, is what he's saying. So that comes after our episode where we were talking about rings and dating and headstones and stuff like that. And the three of us, you and me and Brittany, Anita, had a little bit different thoughts. So what is your opinion on that?
So, Jason and I never had any real frank discussions about what would happen if one of us died. we were fairly young. There were some passing comments. That was as far as it ever got. And the one thing that he ever said was that if I died, he didn't think he would be able to get remarried. And I never committed to that or didn't commit to that because I didn't even let my brain go there. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know what Jason's actual wishes are. And whenever I try to think of what his wishes would be, I can't. That is a tricky subject. It's a painful thing to think about for me. So I'm not sure what his wishes would be. I mean, I do know that he would want me to be happy, but he never expressly said, if I die, go find somebody and get married again. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
I think it does. For me, Scott and I, of course, never talked about that because we didn't think he would die. But knowing Scott, he's the type that would always give up whatever he wanted first for other people. So even if he were like, I would be so sad if you were with somebody else, I know that he would dutifully say, I want you to be happy and you should find somebody if that makes you happy. Fun fact, one time I had a little psychic reading and the person said that Scott didn't want me to be a crazy cat lady and that I should find somebody. And I said, nope, bye. So
interesting.
So for me, I'm like, I'll do what I want.
I'm sure that Jason would want me to be happy, whether or not that meant finding somebody else. But there's a little piece of me that thinks that he would be really jealous about it too. So, but you said like duty bound. It would be more of a duty thing. And it might be that, but I don't know if it would be like a genuine, I don't know how to say that without making it sound like Jason's a jerk, because I don't think he is, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this might be a really good question to ask our next guest because she had some time before her husband passed away. So let's ask her if they've had a chance to talk about it. So welcome our guest. This is Christina Sgambato from Baltimore, Maryland. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'd like to hear your opinion on that question from Travis, and then we'll start over and we'll get your story. What do you think?
That sounds great. And actually, it's a really good lead-in because, as you mentioned, my husband and I did have a little bit of time to actually discuss this. I guess you could say discuss this. We talked about it. So my husband was diagnosed with cancer about a week after our son was born. And he passed away within 11 months. So even though we had time to discuss it, we didn't really have time. A lot of that time was spent hoping and praying and thinking things could get better. So the one thing he did say to me was that he wanted me to be happy and that he wanted Bryson to have a dad. And, I think in that time frame, I just was such at a point where I was like, nope, that's not going to happen. Things are going to change. And, it was hard for me to hear that and to really talk about that stuff with him. So, and whether or not that plays a role in my decisions, it does. I think it's so funny that you said that your husband would be jealous too. And I think that I get that feeling too. Like, I know he said that and I'm sure he meant it, but part of me, I think it depends on what you believe into. And I think that there is some sort of life after death and that there is a presence and spirit around you and stuff. And it's like kind of weird to think about, okay, well, if I start dating someone, he's going to be kind of watching me during that. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird thought process. But yeah, we did have that conversation and, he did say that he wanted me to be happy and, or eventually find happiness and for my son to have a father. And, I appreciate that, but he's not the one that's still here to do that. So it's definitely challenging.
It's such a long path from when the person is diagnosed and then dies. And then there's that period of life in between, which is like different for everybody, where it's like, well, healing takes a whole, I don't know, it's just different for everybody else. The scenarios are different for everybody. And it's like, maybe one day you would be ready, but maybe one day you wouldn't want to. And so it's just such a hard question to answer because it just depends on each individual circumstance, I think. You guys think?
It does.
So,
Yeah. And I would say so. I mean, I think that, I think eventually one day I don't want to be alone the rest of my life. I'm only 30. I just turned 34. So, it's a long time to be alone. But on the other hand, it's just so like, it's just weird to try and think of your life without your significant other, and my life without Matt. I mean, we were together for almost 10 years. So, and, I don't, besides my high school boyfriend, I don't really have another love, I would say. So it's just, it's mind numbing to really think about that now. But then again, I also don't want to be alone. So it's just.
I am now even more freaked out because I had never considered the idea of Jason like hovering over me on a date. So now it's even
don't
worse.
You think about that? Like when Jason first died, were you like, are you in here in the bathroom while I'm peeing? And yeah.
Yes. But I had never extrapolated out far enough to think about like the chapter 2 and thinking about him being there and being like, I would have chosen the steak, Don't get the chicken.
I feel like if the shoe were on the other foot and I was the one dead and I was haunting Scott, I would like be such a jerk and I would be jealous. I feel like I would be a jerk.
Would you want Scott to get remarried?
I don't know. I want to say that if I were dead and if I had a different perspective than I have here, then all I would care for was for him to be happy, whatever that meant. But I also know that Scott would be miserable if he were alone. So I think for his best interest, yeah. But then I would also be like kind of jealous or like,
yeah, this is a sticky situation.
Yeah. My question to Travis is, Travis, I know that Travis is married and has kids. And Travis, have you and your wife discussed this? I'm curious to hear if that's been a topic for you guys. And if not, do it and then tell us.
And I was going to say we are achieving something if we're getting people to discuss these things before they find themselves in with no ability to discuss those things. So high five to us. Good job.
Matt and I like never talked about wills and, who should get what and all of these like really logistical things because again, we're 33 and 35 and that just never really crossed our mind before everything happened. And it's a lot harder to have that discussion after someone's been diagnosed with something that could potentially kill them. So my recommendation to everyone is, talk about it when you're healthy and it's not a big deal. It's just being responsible adults and there's no damnation involved in it. And, you don't get those same insecurities and anxieties that you do once something really terrible happens. So
totally. Like, it would be awesome if there were a class in high school that addressed all kind of like normal life things. Like, here's how you get car insurance. Here's what you do when you go to college. Here's how you get a car loan. Here's when you get married, if you get married. Here's how you can have a will or topics to discuss. It's just like we're not prepared.
I don't even think you need to be married to have that kind of stuff. I mean, like they tell you that all people should have an advance directive, even young people, because, I mean, if you're in a position where you can't speak for yourself, then you got to have some way to communicate it. And also, write down your passwords. Can I say that 1,100 times?
Seriously.
Write down your passwords. I have a computer program. I made a document with all of my passwords in it so that if I die, they can pay my phone bill or whatever. It's such a pain.
My website, Scott was the one that paid for it under his account and set it up. Like my professional website, my piano website. And so I couldn't get into it. When it was time to re-up it, it was like, your website will get re-sucked into GoDaddy.com if you do not pay. Like,
It's so painful too. And it's such a like painful and a pain when you have to jump through those hoops and try and explain to people, you're just like, can I just pay my stupid phone bill? Please take my money. Okay, so can we rewind? Because we kind of jumped into the story in the middle. So you want to start at the beginning, Christina? I mean, maybe not like your birth, but... somewhere after that.
I mean, it was December 31st, 1985.
Ooh, almost New Year's Eve, or almost New Year's, baby.
I am. Yep. Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about my story. So I met my husband, Matt, when I was about 25. I had just moved to the Maryland area from Boston. That's where I'm originally from. And I had kind of hooked up with this group of friends in the same neighborhood. We were all on the same kickball team and ended up hanging out together. And Matt and I had gone to a few parties together and hung out a little bit, but we never really ventured into the relationship path. He had actually, when I first met him, he was dating somebody else. And again, I had just moved to the area. And we started talking a little bit and flirting, mid-20s young professionals with no other responsibilities did during that period of our lives. And the story kind of goes that it all kind of started at a 4th of July party we had. So in Baltimore, everybody has a roof deck, and basically all of the parties and all of the house things are on your roof deck, especially in the summer. And here, typically summer's from end of April to beginning of November. So that's a pretty long season on your roof decks, hanging out with your friends. And there was this one roof deck party. It was their big 4th of July party. And my husband and his brother owned one of the townhouses in Federal Hill, which is the neighborhood in Baltimore. And I mean, this was just a giant party. There were people from God knows how many different places, and I don't even know half their names. We were all hanging out, and they had a kiddie pool on the roof deck, which was interesting when you're adults in your 20s, and a bunch of other things that were probably inappropriate for adults to have, but they were up there. And at one point during the party, I turned around, and at this time, I should also explain, my husband was 6'2" and probably about, 185 pounds, and I was about 5'2" and about 90 pounds. So that was our big, totally different body shapes. So I hear a lot of gasping happening on the roof deck, and I turn around, and my husband, not my husband at the time, Matt, was shimmying my 00 shorts onto his body and walking around the party with my shorts on. And there's this picture that went viral among our group of friends that is Matt wearing my shorts, and then I had consequently put his shorts on, which were massive on me. But we just ended up joking around that day, and kind of one thing led to the next. And, we were inseparable after that. And it's funny because 2 days after the shorts incident, he was walking with one of our mutual friends, and he basically told him that one day he was going to marry me. And this was literally after 2 days of really talking. I mean, we had briefly talked before, but on that 4th of July party and that weekend, we really started having a lot more conversations and definitely more intense flirting, I would say. And yeah, so that was kind of how we met. And we dated for about 4 years before he proposed. And wow. Yes, in it to win it. So he asked me to marry him, and it was actually kind of funny. I should tell this story briefly too, because it just surmises his character. He loved surprises, but he was terrible at keeping secrets. I mean, absolutely awful. I have never met a person worse at keeping a secret. And he had asked my father for my hand in marriage, and subsequently that evening told me he asked my father for my hand in marriage. So I already knew that at some point he was going to be proposing to me. I just didn't really know when that would be. He did end up surprising me when it did happen, so that was nice. But it was just funny and just so his character. But anyway, so we got married in December of 2016, December 3rd. And then we found out we were pregnant with our first son in May of 2018, and which is also kind of a funny story. So Matt and I had been trying to try to get pregnant for about 6 months. And that was an evolution of our thoughts on having children. When we first got married, we were both like, we're never having children. We're just going to be, professionals that travel the world and have no responsibilities except for our dog, Charlie, and life will be fantastic. And then slowly over time, we started thinking about it more, and, the thought of having children became more feasible for us. And then finally we decided, yes, we want to have kids. So it took us about 6 months to get pregnant, which felt like 6 years going through that process, because you're just getting so excited, and then it would be a downer and whatnot. And right before we found out, we had actually been on a family vacation in Florida with Matt's brother and his family, who we're really close with. They're my friends as well. And they have 2 children, and on the flight home, the kids were going a little crazy on the plane. And Matt turned to me and he was like, I am never traveling with children ever again until it's our own. And literally that night I got the positive pregnancy test.
Wow.
And then it was too late.
So that was really funny. And awesome. Then, so we found out we were pregnant, and so we still lived in the city at that point. We decided to start kind of looking at different houses out in a more suburban area, just to kind of prepare for our family growing. And it wasn't really, we didn't feel like we had to find something immediately, but we just started dabbling, and we came across this house that was about 30 minutes outside of the city, and we just fell in love with it. It checked every box on our dream house, bucket list, and it had my front porch. It had a nice yard. It was commutable for both of us from a work perspective, and we just loved it. So we ended up moving into our new house in August of 2018, and then I gave birth to our son in early January of 2019, and about a week later, Matt ended up getting diagnosed with stage 4 bile duct cancer, which was pretty intense.
Good.
I've never heard of that. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a very rare cancer, and it's super rare for someone young and healthy to get, which, it took us, Matt started kind of feeling off in, I want to say like early December, and he went to a gastroenterologist. They did tests and stuff, and they were like, everything looks normal, so I wouldn't really worry about it. And it wasn't until the beginning of January he started getting some side pains, and he was like, I don't know, he worked out heavily, and he was, always doing stuff. So he's like, maybe I pulled a muscle. I don't know, but I'm going to go get it checked. And that was his nature too. He got everything checked. If he had a mole that looked off, he went to a dermatologist. That was just his way. So he ended up going in. They thought it was probably a muscle pain too. Blah, 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 blah. So it really, it took probably 8 weeks for us to get an actual diagnosis. And at that point, it had already metastasized to his liver, which is why he was getting that side pain. But so it was definitely a shock to all of us. And he was just so, he seemed so healthy. And I think that was a lot of it too. Even at the beginning, when he was kind of going through all of this, he's like, I don't feel like I have cancer. I don't feel sick. And, I think it was hard for him to grapple with that a lot at the beginning. And all of us. And, I should say the doctor never gave us a prognosis either. It was kind of like, this is what we're going to do. And we're just going to, if this stops working, we're going to do clinical trials. And there was always that element of hope that kind of kept us going throughout everything. But, I had done my research. I knew what this was, what we were looking at. And it was tough. Especially when you have, at this point we had a 1-week-old son, and, I had to not only go through my feelings, but watch my husband grapple with, being a new dad and being diagnosed with a potentially terminal illness. Definitely terminal, but we didn't call it that at that point. So
I think it's a total ripoff that he was somebody who took care of himself and also would get things checked out. Because you hear stories about people, I didn't go to the doctor, I didn't go to the doctor, I didn't go to the doctor. And then you find out it's something bad, but he went to the doctor. So that's not fair.
It was so frustrating. And he had, and they don't think it's related, but he did have Crohn's disease. He was diagnosed like 18 years ago, and it was very mild, but he still went for a colonoscopy every 2 years. He did honestly like everything by the books. He did more than I do to take care of my own health, and I'm pretty health conscious. So, it was, and aside from that, he took good care of himself physically. Like, he worked out, he ate healthy, he did everything you're supposed to do. And that was just, he kept asking the doctors, he's like, how did this happen? Like, what could have caused this? And, you just get the answer that they don't really know. There's not a ton of research behind this. It's hard to detect early. And you keep hearing this and you're just like, oh my God, like what the, like, and he just, it was like, he got dealt the raw deck of cards, and that's what it felt like.
Yeah. I'm going to just say that January 2019 was the worst month ever.
Yep. I agree. Bad things happen. Except for the birth of my son. That was good. I was happy he was born.
Yeah. Man, I cannot imagine getting that news right after having a baby, because it is already such an emotional time right after you've had a baby. Like, your whole life has just changed. You have all sorts of hormones. You're just a mess. You're not sleeping. And then to have that thrown into the mix, I just think that would be just psychotic, really, to try and have to go through that. I'm so sorry that that's how it worked out for you.
I mean, it's definitely, it's almost like some of that is still a blur, honestly. It felt like, we kind of knew something was going on when I was in the hospital. My husband's father is a hospital administrator, and he had his team look at some of Matt's scans. And so we knew that there was probably an issue, but of course, it's still like, this cannot be happening. This is not the case. It's going to be something different. And I remember the second night I was in the hospital, I could not fall asleep the entire night because I was just in this huge state of anxiety over, is Matt going to be okay? I don't know what I'm doing with the baby. I mean, there were so many things going through my head, and it just felt like this constant anxiety attack all night. I could not wait to get out of that hospital. And it was just, then it just kind of, from there, you're just kind of rolling through the motions. It's this test, and then what are we doing for treatment? And then it just, it was crazy.
Wow. Did you have any postpartum depression or anxiety because just as a result of the pregnancy? And so if you did, that's terrible to also have to deal with that in addition to that,
I mean, I think in that aspect, I didn't. And I think it's because I was so distracted by everything else that like other things, it's almost like my mind prioritized everything at that point. And, I was definitely the person leading up to my pregnancy that was like super organized. This is how I want everything done. We're going to have our bags packed 2 weeks before, like everything in my mind was so like, this is how we're going to run everything. And after everything happened, it was just like, the wild, wild west of like, whatever works right now is what's going to happen and we're going to make work. And, I almost feel like because so much was going on, I'd never had the time to really feel that, that the postpartum depression or the postpartum anxiety, a lot of course, I felt a lot of anger at that point, and a lot of just, I think you feel totally numb, and it might be, similar to when someone dies suddenly, when this gets dropped on your lap, it's like, where did this come from? Like, why is this happening to me? And there was even like, and this sounds terrible, but there were times at the beginning where I'm like, was this some sort of trade-off? Like, you're taking my husband because you're giving me a son? Like, that's not fair. So, it's a weird, I almost feel bad saying that on air, but, and I love my son. I don't want anyone to think that I would ever do anything or regret having him. But in that moment, it felt like that. It felt like for some reason, like this is the price I have to pay. And it was just really hard to grapple with a lot. So there were definitely nights where I was up anyway with my son because he was also a terrible sleeper. So, those thoughts would definitely come through my mind, especially then. But yeah, it was crazy.
How did you juggle treatments and having a newborn? And then, how did you do that? Did you have a lot of support, or were you just in the weeds?
I was pretty, I mean, you could say both, but I was really lucky in that my mom actually moved down to Maryland. So my family still lives in New England, and my mom moved down to Maryland and stayed with us basically all last year. She did end up getting her own apartment, but she watched my son while I went to the hospital. She would watch him when we went to treatments. Matt's treatment regimens weren't awful. He would only have to go. So for most of them, he went once every 2 weeks, and it wasn't very long. I mean, we were gone maybe half a day. And my work allowed me to work remotely during that period of time whenever we'd have to do that. So that was helpful. And, you know, my mom was a godsend. If we didn't have her last year, I don't know what we would have done, because I literally wouldn't have been able to juggle everything. But yeah, having her here helped. And I would say that was probably the only way we got through everything. And, you know, for most of the time too, aside from like treatment days and maybe a day after, Matt could do basically everything. I mean, he still worked out every day. He still like ate his normal meals. You know, we still did things together. So, you know, I mean, there were definitely harder times, and it definitely got worse closer to the end. But I would say for the majority of that year, you know, Matt was, honestly, if you had met him, you would have zero idea that he was sick with anything, never mind cancer. So, you know, that was helpful too. But he was also dealing with a lot of things mentally too.
Wow.
You know, like, I think he had a hard time getting close to Bryson, my son, because he was just concerned about, you know, I don't want to die. I don't want to leave him without a father. And it was just too painful for him to have to do. So,
that's awful.
Yeah.
So it sounds like he wasn't in terrible shape for most of the year. Was his drop off really precipitous? Did he go from just being okay to just kind of nosediving?
So it was Matt responded really well to the initial treatment plan. And up until, I would say, August, and there's even some question as to whether or not he should come off, but up until August, everything had been going really well. So part of the reason he probably hadn't been so bad is because the cancer had diminished significantly in his body. And the chemotherapy he was on, he tolerated really well. Then around July, we got our first not so great scan. He had a lot of shrinkage, but he had one tumor that had grown a little bit. So the doctor decided to move him to another chemotherapy regimen that had seemed to be working better for cholangiocarcinoma patients. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for Matt. But so he ended up going on that for about 6 weeks. And that really didn't do anything for him. And over that time, he started to get more tired. He definitely did, you know, the chemo was rougher on him, but also the cancer wasn't getting any better. And I think that had an impact. And then I would say by November, that's when there was a real sharp decline. And, you know, we had scoured the country for clinical trials, and we looked into them. The fact that he had Crohn's disease in the past prevented him from a lot of being part of any of these clinical trials too, which was also really hard for us. You know, we always thought that these were things we'd have in our back pocket, and then we didn't. So he went about, after that second chemo didn't work, he ended up going about 6 weeks without any form of treatment. And that really just was not good. So.
Did you know that the end was coming, or was it a little bit of a surprise? We've talked to lots of cancer widows, and for some of them it was like they knew that they had cancer, but they didn't realize that they were going to die so soon, that they still thought they had a lot of time. Did you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I don't know. I think part of me was just didn't want to believe that it was going to happen. You know, we were so active in looking at all of these trial options, and he had actually had a procedure done a couple weeks before he went into the hospital that we had hoped was going to do what it needed to do. So I would say, you know, things weren't looking great, but I always felt like there was some sort of hope that I was relying on. Like, we hadn't reached the end of the spectrum of things we could do, and Matt was strong and all of these different things. But, you know, we ended up, he had that procedure, and then we ended up going to the hospital, and he was in the hospital for about 2 weeks before he passed away. And we had actually been talking about, moving him into more of a hospice type of care where he could still, if he kind of graduated, he could still get his traditional treatments, but for the time being, they needed to just, treat him acutely. And, but before we even did that, he ended up turning and ended up passing away pretty fast. So I would say yes and no. Like, in the back of my mind, I felt like it was probably coming, but how it happened fast. And I would say the decline happened really fast.
Were you with him when he passed away?
I was, yeah. So he had, I had basically been staying at the hospital with him for basically every night, but his dad had come down, and his brother and my sister-in-law had come around too. And that night I actually was going to go home and stay at my house. And so I had left, and his dad was there. And then his dad called me and said that, his heart rate was dropped, or all of these things were happening, and I needed to get there fast, basically. And so overnight they were doing a few things to kind of try and stabilize him, but he ended up passing away on Christmas Eve. So
that's just rude.
I know. Oh. And it was like his favorite holiday, which is even worse.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to you. You have a dead husband.
One thing that Anita and I always do, if it's a birthday or like International Widow's Day or whatever, when we text each other, we just say birthday, Widow's Day, Mother's Day. Like, there's no happy in front of it. So for you, it would be Christmas.
That's how our whole family was. It was so, we ended up all still having dinner that night on Christmas Eve, and we're just like, we're not going to say happy, nothing is happy right now, but it really just, it took a lot of gas out of all of us. And the whole year did, but I think that there was always that level of hope, because he was, for the most part, always doing so well, or always seemed to be doing so well, that, we were just like, okay, he's going to be the one that survives this. That's how the attitude always was. And I don't regret that either. I think that's better than living an entire year feeling hopeless and without any sort of, potential life together in the future. But it's also, you do feel a little bit like, was I just totally ignorant to things, or was I just, was my mind clouded with everything? But, I think my mind did what it had to do during that time to survive.
What's the survival rate of that type of cancer? Is it pretty scary? I think it is, isn't it? If you get diagnosed with that, it's not good. Yeah. It's
not great. And I actually, he would always say, it was probably in line with a pancreatic cancer or even worse. And he would always say, well, at least it's not like that. And I'm like, yeah, but actually it is. But I'm not going to tell you that.
Oh, wow. So right after he passed away, you were in the midst of Christmas, and then it was winter, and you're in New England, and it's very cold, and it's very gray. And what was that first winter like for you? And that's our most recent winter, because this just happened this past December, right? So tell us a little bit about the aftermath.
Yeah, so I'm a little south. I'm in Maryland, so I'm not in New England, thank God. But still the northeastern part of this country, and it was challenging. He passed away, and then it was Christmas, and then it was my birthday, and then it was my son's birthday, and that all happened in less, under a month. So I think that, again, I think a lot of things are still a blur, and I'm sure you guys, when you experience the initial part of organizing the funeral and all of the different, aspects of everything, you're kind of just rolling through the motions and getting through all of that. And for us, we ended up doing, so Matt wasn't super religious, and he wasn't religious at all. I shouldn't even say super, he was not religious. And so instead of doing a normal funeral, we actually just did 2 different celebrations of his life in Baltimore, and then we did one up in Connecticut, where he's from, at a brewery up there, and we did a nice service down here and went to one of the local restaurants and had a party there for him and stuff. But we kind of wanted to keep everything very much like Matt, and what would Matt want to go to and what would Matt enjoy. So and it was really nice doing that because I got to see a lot of people and, we shared all of the good stories and the things that you laugh at. And, you're kind of going through all of that. And then it was just like exhaustion after that. I was just so tired. And, I'm so tired, but I still have a 1-year-old that I have to take care of too. So it's like you don't really have the time to just be like, okay, I'm going to just go curl up in my bed and not see anyone for a couple days. And my son is very attached. So, it's hard to even like think about what my mind was doing during that period of time, but it was all over the place. And then I went back to work on the 6th of January. So I went back pretty quickly after all of the different services and everything were done. So, I mean, I think I felt like I had to do that in order to feel like something normal again. But it was, it was still challenging. I mean, anytime a song would come on or, someone would say something, it just like kind of triggers you inside. And I'm not great at showing my emotions all the time. So
was your work, would they have been cool with you taking a little bit more time off? I know that in the widows that I met first after Scott died, they came over to my house. Sorry, my dogs are playing. I'm the one with the noisy children now. Some widows that I had spoken with, the very first ones that I had met, they told me that they jumped right back into work. And then like 6 months after that, they were taking time off again because they're just like, I thought that I had to go back to work to kind of get things on track or whatever. But man, I'm exhausted. Now I know this has only been almost 5 months, right?
Yeah, about 5 months.
So you're still in like a really beginning phase of this. How has your energy been holding up currently? Or do you feel like your work would give you time off if you need it? What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would lose my job, but I probably wouldn't get paid. So there's not really, I don't have like a lot of grievance time or anything like that. So, I don't think I would have the flexibility to be able to just take some time for myself and let that be covered by work and still get paid for it. So, my energy hasn't been terrible. I mean, honestly, like adding a pandemic on top of being in your grieving period is a whole nother level. So, I was working from home for probably the past month-ish, and maybe that helped out a little bit. I don't know. Work for me too, and I think everybody manages things differently, and it definitely is a distraction for me, which is helpful. When I'm at work, I can get into my work mode and just get things done, and it kind of helps me get through the day. I also am not someone that really thrives on being alone either. So, if I don't have people around me, that's when I start to get into my own head, and it just like everything starts to come out. And, that's why a lot of the crying I do is in the shower or when I'm in bed at night or when I'm alone. Yeah. I don't know what it is about a shower, but man, every time. But it's, so I think, being around other people definitely helps me feel more energetic and makes me like just more motivated to do things. And like I said, with my son too, it's really hard for me to just have any sort of an off switch. So even if I, were to take time off, I would not be off. I would be totally on because he is just so energetic and he has no idea what's going on. He's just a little 1-year-old that's running around and pointing to pictures of Dada and, doing all that. So
I have a question about that. So have you found yourself just like starving for some relief from being a mom during the pandemic? Have you felt like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. I need to be a normal human adult person without this person?
Yes. I mean, I think, I would say even a little bit before the pandemic, but, it's funny when you're kind of going through all of this, you almost grieve like your life in the past too. So even when like I was going through everything with Matt, like I grieved how we used to be. And, now I grieve not having him and how he used to be. And I'm like, gosh, I just want to be able to like go out with my friends or go to dinner and not worry about, my 1-year-old that doesn't like to sleep at night and being up with him all night. And, or even just, watching a show I want to watch or doing something normal around the house where it's, it's an adult thing to do. But on the opposite end, it's also having him here is not only a great distraction, but it's a nice reminder. I mean, he looks exactly like my husband, which is hilarious. And, he is his innocence too. And all of this is just, like I said, he doesn't really know what's going on. I mean, he still loves pointing at pictures of Dada, and he's not sad, he's just thinks that's Dada. So, I definitely have those moments where I'd love it if I could just take a break from momhood and have, either alone time or adult time. But, it is what it is. So here I am.
So Christina, I know it's not been very much time that you've been a young widow, but have you met, of course there's us, me and Anita, but have you connected with any other young widows, or do you have a support of people in a similar circumstance as you?
Yeah, so I had, I've shied away a lot from these type of things just because, I don't know, it was really hard, especially when we were going through everything and you could go to all these cancer support groups. And it was like, do I really want to, talk to other people who are feeling just as sad as I am about everything? And I just wasn't really sure how I wanted to go about doing that. And then I did have a girlfriend of mine who her fiance had passed away of colon cancer, actually about 2 years before Matt passed. And I mean, we were friendly, but we weren't like best friends, and I hadn't seen her in quite a while. And she ended up reaching out to me probably about 3 or 4 months before Matt passed away, and we ended up meeting up. And that was really the first time I felt like I talked to someone that really understood what I was going through. And I found that so helpful, even in dealing with, as we kind of worked through the last few months of everything, it's kind of that reminder too that I'm not alone. And, when I feel like I'm the only one going through this, it's not true. Like, there are so many people that have to go through this. And, I could at least talk to her about a lot of the different feelings I was having leading up to that. And, post it actually happening. And then I had a couple of other young widows reach out to me. Actually, one of them, my boss had told me about her, and then he had told her about me and ended up kind of connecting us. And it has been helpful. She was young. She was actually younger than me. Her husband, I think, was like 30 when he passed away of cancer. And then another woman, her husband actually had passed away from suicide, which again is a totally different, grieving process, and so many other things you have to deal with in regards to that. But I just find like having those conversations is so helpful because it's so real. And I don't think until you actually experience it, you can really understand. And it's not anything against my friends. They're incredibly supportive, and, they're also grieving this loss in their own ways, but they know they don't understand. And there's only a certain level to which they can. So yeah, I have found that helpful.
Do you ever feel like you're a sociopath?
Yeah.
If you guys could have seen the look she just gave me, you would be scared of Christina.
She's plotting.
She leaned hard into the camera.
Oh man, it's so crazy. The ups and downs are so crazy. You just never know how you're gonna feel.
No, I feel like every day is so different, and like every moment really. I mean, there are days where I'm like, oh, I'm having a fantastic day. Nothing can break me. And then I'm like, ah, and like the waterfall happens, and then one thing leads to another, and I'm just like, it could even just be like that little frustrating moment with Bryson, even where I'm just like, I didn't sign up to be a single mom. Like all of those thoughts that kind of go through your head, and you're just like, I know, again, that sounds really terrible, but
no, it doesn't.
Anita says that all the time. She posts that.
No, it doesn't. I say that at least 130,000 times a day. Like, I did not sign up to do this by myself. I would have made different decisions had I been doing this, had I known.
Yeah, she posted on her Facebook all the time. So, Christina, when you first wrote into us, you shared your blog with us, which I got to read a little bit of, and I loved how you described Matt. And you mentioned how your blog was a coping mechanism for you, and then you also mentioned now is it a nonprofit that you started?
At the moment, it's not a registered nonprofit. So we kind of had, after Matt had passed away and, we had these different functions for him afterwards, we had about probably close to 500 people attend these different things. And, everyone was, donating and asking what they could do and all of these different things. And we kind of got together and we were like, it would be really great to do something to help fund research for cholangiocarcinoma, and like I mentioned before, all we ever heard was there's not enough research. There are only a few clinical trial options, like all of these things. I mean, honestly, there was a point at which we were hoping Matt had stage 4 colon cancer because there were more options for him. Like the fact that you had to, hope you had another form of cancer, it's just awful. And so we were like, we need to do something about this, and we need to keep fighting for Matt, and we kind of came up with an idea to have a fundraiser for the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, which is a nonprofit. It's the only registered nonprofit specifically for bile duct cancer and cholangiocarcinoma. And actually, over their course, they've raised about $1.9 million in research grants. So we knew that was where we wanted to direct money to, but we wanted to have a fundraiser kind of on our terms and how we think Matt would want to have a fundraiser. So, so we're doing a big event in August, as long as, coronavirus doesn't end it, but we'll find a way to do it virtually. So we're going to have it regardless, but it's basically, we're going to have live music, a cornhole tournament, silent auction, and just get everyone together at one of the local breweries in Baltimore to not only celebrate Matt, but to really, raise money to keep fighting this disease and, hopefully other, patients or people that know patients or people that know others that have passed away, unfortunately, can come out and, help us raise money for that too. So, yeah.
I love that you're doing that. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of that type of cancer, so it would be really great to spread the word. I mean, I can't believe that he was so young and got such a strange disease, So, let us know when your event gets closer, even if it ends up being on virtually, because we would love to promote it and tell everybody about it.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to know how you do cornhole remotely, though. That's my question.
So you can.
What? You can?
Yes. So they have like virtual cornhole tournament platforms that you can set up. So
we live in a crazy world.
Seeing a demo of this, but we're really, I mean, I don't know if that'll end up being a part of our event if we do it virtually, but we're looking at everything right now because we're like, we need to keep doing this. And so many people, I mean, we've already sold about, I think like 60 tickets or something, and they're all donation based. So people are just, paying what they can to come. But for the foundation as a total, we've raised about $25,000 in honor of Matt. So it's pretty awesome.
Great. What's the foundation's website?
I'll give you 2 websites. So the events website for our event is just A Matter of Hope. So Matt, like my husband's name, ofhope.org. And then the foundation's is cholangiocarcinoma, which is a very long term. So it's, I could spell it out for you if you like.
Don't worry about that. We'll just, I love the A Matter of Hope name. Yeah.
That's really cute. I have a question about that. Mm-hmm. Do you find that it has been really helpful for you to have something actionable to do with your feelings and your grief? Because I have found that to be the case for me, that I need something to do, something to keep me thinking about Jason and to kind of like making meaning of the situation so that you can make something good come out of it. So I'm wondering if you have the same kind of feelings.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that, right off the bat, I knew that it was going to be one way that I was able to cope and still feel like I was helping to finish business that Matt wasn't able to. And, you talk about someone, I don't want Matt to die in vain. I don't want, I don't want him to be forgotten, and I don't think he would, but it just, this event not only helps us continue fighting and feels like I'm doing something instead of just kind of letting it be, but it also keeps Matt's spirit very much alive for all of us. And he, when I say he's a force, he really is a force. I mean, his personality is one you don't forget. And I think that keeping that alive for so many of us, not just for me, but for everyone that's really been impacted by this, is just so integral to, our cause and our mission and our vision for this event. So I definitely think it's helped me kind of feel like there's still something I'm doing for him, and there's still a way for me to keep him, his spirit alive, for not only for everyone around here too, but for Bryson. If this is something that we do long term, it's always that reminder of his dad. And I think that that's going to be really important for us as he gets older too. Because the last thing I want is Bryson not to know who his dad was. That would just be heartbreaking.
That's a really great way to honor Matt and to give you something to fight towards and work towards. Are there other coping mechanisms that you have been helped by, like eating cheese? Or what's something that's kind of silly that's been helpful for you?
Popsicles in the shower.
Oh gosh. So my blogs definitely have helped me, like you had said already. I think that was my first outlet. I've had a blog for probably, I don't know, about 2 years, maybe no longer than that, 3 years. And I really started getting more into it during my pregnancy, and to the point where Matt even let me get a paid version of the blog, which was big doings. And then everything happened over last year, and I stopped blogging completely just because I didn't have time. I was running around between all these different things. And when it came time to renew the blog last year, I was like, do you think I should? And he's like, well, are you going to actually use it? I was like, yes, I will. I promise. So I felt like, one, I had to use it because we had already paid for it. And, I felt like, okay, it's always been a good way for me to kind of let my feelings out in the past. So maybe this is going to be a good way that I can communicate that out to people, because I think I also kind of used it to plant seeds with people too, as to what they should be doing and what they should not be doing when they're talking to me, or when they're addressing the situation. So
that's such a good idea.
I mean, I like, going for walks. It sounds really dumb, but it actually does help me too. I think it helps me clear my head a lot and just feel like, I don't know, feel really alive, when a lot of times I feel like I'm just struggling inside too. So that helps. And I would say those are probably the thing. Oh, and watching mindless TV. That's another thing. I found that I never really did that before, but I'm like, I cannot watch anything that's going to make me feel more sad right now. So I just need to watch things where I can laugh at other people's lives. And that's what I did.
So what are some of your favorite shows like that?
Well, I'm in the midst of 90 Day Fiancé, which is really fun to watch. I've also dabbled in Jersey Shore and the Real Housewives shows, and what else? That's probably the gamut of really mindless TV that I've watched. I'm sure I'll get into more, but
keep us posted.
I will.
It's very exciting.
I am curious about the seeds that you planted on your blog about how people should treat you or what they should do, because that is genius, I'm going to say, to just help people along. But what were those seeds that you planted? What did you put on there or in there?
I'd say one thing, and it was actually in one of my posts, and I'm just thinking about it now, because I will tell you, I didn't have a lot of people saying awful things to me. The one thing that always I feel like I felt really strongly about was, well, I hate that I'm sorry for your loss. And I know everybody says it, and it's the jargon you say when somebody loses someone. But I think it really would get to me more when it was people that I felt, were really close to us. And I'm like, I'm sorry for your loss. It's not just my loss. And to say it's just my loss feels like Matt didn't have that impact on the people that he did, and I feel like his, losing him was not just a loss to me. It was a loss to everyone. And I feel like it almost just belittles that. And I know that it's not something anybody means by saying that. They feel like they should, but it just always got to me when people would say that.
Same, 100%.
I think I had a whole paragraph in one blog post about that. And I continuously reread it to myself, and I was like, oh, damn, that was good, Christina. What other seeds did I plant? I think I also talked a lot about just like talking about Matt too, I think. And I don't know if you I felt like people would get guarded around me about like bringing his name up or, saying something or that was wrong. And I'm like, I don't want you to not talk about Matt. I mean, he was a big part of my life, and I want him to still be brought up and to still have those conversations about him. And they help me, like talking about him, especially, the fun times and the good times pre-cancer, all of the, the 9 years we were together before that, and the many more that you might have known him where he was, doing his crazy antics and making everyone laugh and probably scaring a few people. I want to hear those stories because they just, they make me smile. So by not doing that, it's like you're just going to let him go away in your mind. And I didn't like that idea or that thought. So that was something else. And then also it was just, one thing, and I don't know if you felt like this predominantly with your families or anything like that, but, and my parents have been fantastic, and this is no chide to them, but they couldn't fix this. And I think that, my dad would try to fix everything. I remember I was getting up to do my reading or what I had written down for Matt at his service. And my dad's like coming up to adjust the microphone. And I'm like, Dad, you need to back off. I'm 33 years old right now. I can handle this. And it was almost like they just, especially my father, I wouldn't say my mom really, but my dad, he just hated the fact that he couldn't fix anything. And so he was too much. Like, he'd have to be near me all the time. He'd have to make sure I was okay, and I just am like, you need to give me a little space right now to feel these things. And if I want to go cry in my room for a few minutes, you need to let me do that and not follow me up the stairs. Like, these things need to happen.
That's so funny because my dad had some similar tendencies. Like, in the time period where people were just coming over, I mean, he was like searching the house for things that needed to be fixed. He was like, oh, we're going to fix that door. There was a hole in the wall. We're going to patch that hole in the wall, like all of these things, because there was this sense that he needed to fix this and there wasn't anything to fix. And so he just found things to fix because, I mean, from their point of view, they're so helpless that they just are grasping at anything to try and help. But it's true. It's not something that you can fix with.
My dad watched The Crown in the basement. That's what my dad did.
That's so funny.
Which was great for me. It gave me some normalcy, I guess, having someone in the house watching TV.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think those are probably the things I kind of planted seeds. I'm sure there are more. Those are just the ones that have popped into my head.
Christina, I have loved to hear your story. Is there anything else that you want to tell us that we didn't ask a question or that you weren't able to communicate to us and the listeners?
I mean, I think I would just say, we've kind of alluded to it too, but it's almost like when, it's been what do we say, about 5 months since Matt's passed away. But really, it's been, over a year since he was a year and a half since he was diagnosed. So I feel like I've been grieving for so long. It's just different levels of grief that I'm kind of going through. So I don't know if that changes the grieving process. Of course, it's different for everyone. And that's something I've talked about so many times too. But, I think that part of, I think why this is so helpful too, and why I hope other young widows kind of listen to this, follow blogs, do those things, find support, is that you kind of want to just understand from other people's experiences what this kind of feels like too for them, and see what that's like for your future. As someone that's only been widowed for 5 months, I think about, I'm like, am I still going to feel this way in a year? Am I still going to feel this way in 5 years? Am I still going to feel this way in 25 years? All of those thoughts kind of go through your head, or in my head anyway. And I just find that, it also makes it feel like it's okay if it does. And it's okay if like you're constantly kind of going back and forth with those feelings, and just kind of doing what you need to do to survive in the moment, which is how I feel like I've been over the past year and a half. I just do whatever I have to do to survive in the moment, and that's what gets me through every day. And And there are moments where things feel normal-ish. And then there are more moments where I'm like, how did this happen to us? Like, I'm still looking over this past year and a half, like, it feels like it's a nightmare that I still haven't woken up from. And, I don't anticipate that's ever going to completely go away. I think that my life will evolve over time. I think Matt's still going to always play an integral part in my life, however that may be. But, it's also just, I think the fear of the unknown is really scary.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we are so glad that you found us and that you reached out. So hopefully you find a good community of situationed people here. Join the Facebook group, Christina.
Yeah,
that would be so fun.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll talk to Karen in Canada.
I feel like sociopaths together. That's how I feel. It has been awesome to hear Christina and her story and to learn a little bit more about her and hear her perspectives. So thank you for joining us today, Christina. And we hope you found today's episode helpful. Please connect with us on Facebook. Join the group. Email us, Facebook Messenger us, send us a pigeon, a carrier pigeon, if you have anything you want to say to us.
Wait, have you played Game Pigeon before?
No. Is it bad?
It's an app. No, it's an app we can play games. Send Anita a game pigeon.
Yeah, send me a game pigeon. I don't know what that is, but and join us next time. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Christina.
And we're just three young widows trying to figure out widow we do now.
Come here, dogs.
They're being crazy.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.